Hi all, welcome. Hopefully you can all see and hear me. My name's Chris Beales. I'm the chairman of the East Midlands Young Rail Professionals. Tonight we've got Kamil Hashmi, a project engineer from Porterbrook. Kamil's going to talk a bit about Aurora A, modernising for the future, talking about fleet upgrades on rolling stock. Throughout the presentation, if you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat box and we'll have a bit of a Q&A session at the end. Just so you're aware, it's a bit of an interactive session as well, so please have your smartphones at the ready. And with that, Kamil, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Chris. Hello everyone. As Chris said, my name is Kamil Hashmi. I'm a project engineer working at Porterbrook Leasing, and today I will be talking about Project Aurora A. So I'll bring up my screen now. Please let me know if you're not able to view it. If you have any problems, just drop your message in the chat box and Chris will help us. But as Chris said, I work for Porterbrook as a project engineer. So I thought I'll start my presentation today by introducing myself and talking a bit about myself. So I came to UK as an international student in 2009. I joined University of Birmingham to start my electrical engineering degree, and I graduated in 2013. As part of my final year project, I worked on UK's first hydrogen-powered locomotive. I used a Raspberry Pi to design a 100% wireless control system for this hydrogen locomotive. Straight after my graduation, I joined SNC-Lavalin as a graduate engineer, and then I carried on working with SNC-Lavalin. In 2019, I joined Porterbrook as a project engineer, where I had the opportunity to work on Project Aurora A. This year in January, I got my chartership. I got my chartership certification, so I was very pleased with that. In overall, I have been in the railway industry for 7 years. I might not look like one, but trust me, I am a young engineer. So today we're talking about Aurora A, and I wanted to go into a bit more detail about this £55 million project that has been funded entirely by Porterbrook. This project is based on Porterbrook's Electrostar fleet, which is class 377s and 387s. And with my presentation today, I aim to take you through the journey that we've embarked on to develop and deliver this scope. I will be detailing the 7 areas of 7 scopes of work we have for Aurora A. Now, this is the first time I'm doing a webinar, so I thought, I can't see my audience, so I thought I should do some sort of an interactive session that where my audience can actually interact with me. So if I can request everyone to grab their mobile phones and join me in this session here, which is using Slido. So if you can scan the barcode on the screen to join the session, put in your name so that I can see who's joined the session. You don't have to give your original name. You can give anything, any username, as long as you can recognize yourself. In case the barcode does not work, you can use the link below to sort of enter the quiz on the polling session. So I've got Anna and Chris so far who have joined me. We'll just give a few minutes so that everyone else can join us today. Please feel free to ask if you have any questions if you're not able to join. I can see we've got 5 people so far, 8, 10. 14. So I think we've got about 30 attendees in this session today, so we'll give a few more seconds so that everyone can join. Excellent. It seems like the technology is working. We've got 21 attendees, maybe a few more seconds so that everyone can join the session today. Yes, please feel free to ask if you have any questions. This is only the first time. We'll have to spend some time getting this to work, but after that, throughout the session today, it won't take too long. You should be able to respond straight away. I think it's stopped at 23. It's not that you have to join it now. You can join at any point during the presentation. So I think it's I will move on to the next question now, which is now I'm going to ask you a question. Oh, I got one more. I'm going to ask you a question, and the quicker you respond to it, the higher you get to be on the leaderboard. So the first one is a quick, very simple question, just to get the system going, just to get the system set up. You got 26. We're still getting some people coming in. I think, yeah, it's stopped now. So the question for today is, what is today's date? I want to see how many people, if you can look up your screens again, and you should see that question appear on the same session. If you can put your answers in, and if you can send them through. I've got 18 responses so far. I think we had 26 people sign up, so I'll wait till 26. Three more, and then I will move on to the next slide. 24. It's a pretty obvious one. I think I'm sure everyone should be able to answer that. Okay, so the answer is 96% people got it correctly. The answer is 3rd of June. It's not 3rd of June 2020, so it's like there. So some people got that wrong, but 3rd of June 2021 was the right answer. Callum was the fastest. Well done there, Callum. So okay, it's here's one back within 6 seconds. Now we know that the technology is working. Let's get to some serious railway stuff. So my next question is, what do you think about the UK Railway? So this is you can enter a word or two to express what you think about the UK Railway. What will help me is it helped me understand the mood of my audience today. What do they think about the UK Railway? So slow, innovative, at the same time, complex. That is a very good word. I think that does explain a lot about our UK Railway. Efficient, it is the future. That is true. It is very true that it is the future. I've got inefficient now. I've got efficient and inefficient. So I think we'll say the bigger the bigger the word gets, that means more people are responding to that. It's historic, absolutely. UK is the place of the where the railway has been there. Lazy, yes, lazy is also a good word. Pricey, yes, of course. Running a railway is not cheap. It requires a lot of effort. Useful, getting there, of course, yes, there's a lot of innovation there, and today's topic is to tell you that we are definitely getting there. There's a lot of potential. Not very punctual, frustratingly handcuffed. Legacy equipment, yes, very important point for today's. Keep that in the back of your mind. Modernization, again, another thing we need to worry. We are going to address as part of this presentation today. But again, it seems like complex is the biggest one, with historic and slow. Fragmented, yes, fragmented. Overcrowded, absolutely. So a lot of words there to express people's feelings there. But yes, it is very obvious from the word from this bank of words here that we are struggling, and we need to do something about this railway. We need to make it more easier for the passengers. We need to make our journeys more useful for the passengers, and to make it easy to actually access the railway and go from one place to the other. So really good, really impressed with the responses there. I think what we're going to do today is try to address some of these points that you have raised and how we're addressing these as part of Project Aurora A. So before I dwell down too much into Aurora A, I just want to give you a brief background of what Aurora A was based on. Now, it is based on Porterbrook's Electrostar fleet, which is made up of Class 377s and 387s. Now, there are 10 different subclasses with a total of 1,230 vehicles. And as you can see, these are made up of 3, 4, and 5 car formations, which makes them ideal to operate on the southern network of London. Now, all these trains are interoperable, but they were built over different decades, which means that they have different onboard systems. Now, this is a challenge because we are trying to implement a consistent solution, but we have different systems built over different decades, so we need to somehow manage that. Now, we started working on Aurora A back in 2018, and we set on a mission to enhance the Electrostar fleets. And we said we put forward three main objectives for Aurora A, which was one, enhance the customer experience. I think it became very obvious from the words that you suggested today that you want to have a better customer experience, improve the performance of the units and fleet, something we all agree with, and implement a consistent and future-proof solution across Porterbrook's Electrostar fleet. And based on these three objectives, Aurora A came into existence. So how did we go about delivering it? So we started off by undertaking 4 work streams in parallel. We started off by reviewing the invitation to tenders, the recent invitation to tenders, to understand what the new franchise requirements were by the DfT. We were working very closely with Transport Focus and London Travel Watch to research what the people really wanted, what was a wish list for people, for the passengers, and what passengers would like to see on their PIS screens, and what information they would like access to. We also compared our Electrostar fleet with the new builds to understand what strategy the manufacturers were using and how we could implement a similar strategy as part of the upgrade for Aurora A. And finally, by working closely with our train operating company, we were able to determine the reliability issues and how we should address. So the research we carried out, we looked at all the different aspects of the trains, and we listed all the bits that we should upgrade as part of Aurora. So based on this work streams, we found 7 areas that we should address. So hence there were 7 scopes of work. You could split them into customer facing upgrades and unit reliability or performance upgrades. So I would request everyone to go back to their mobile screens now, and if they could join the session again, I have a question to ask you. Do you carry a 3-pin socket charger? Now, when I say that 3-pin socket charger, I mean something like this, where you have a USB socket on, and you can use that to charge your mobile phones. So I'll give a few seconds for everyone. To respond. So far, it's a 50-50. 10 responses. Okay, I think majority of people are saying yes. All right, lovely. So I think we've got 25 responses, which is 26 responses, which is, I'm just going to give a few seconds to see if somebody else wants to respond. Okay, so a majority of you said yes, you do carry a 3-pin socket charger, and that is why we are installing a 3-pin 230-volt 3-pin sockets with dual USB cables. Now, yes, at the moment, a lot of you are carrying your 3-pin socket chargers, but we are hoping that going forward, you don't have to carry it. You just need to carry a USB cable to charge your mobile devices. So the solution is, across every seat in our units, you will be able to find a 3-pin socket charger, a 3-pin socket with 2 USB charging points. So that's been implemented now. On some of the fleets, it's a faceplate change, but whereas on the older builds, it's an entire new wiring that's been installed so that we can install these sockets in there. So I think it was a good decision by Porterbrook, based on what you guys have told me, that 70% of you will still carry these chargers. But going forward, the question is, will you still be carrying them? So time for another question then. What type of cable does your mobile use for charging? Now, there's quite a few options over here. USB-A is the standard cable that we get with most of our laptops. It's still being used. People with Apple devices would have Lightning connectors. The newer devices with Apple are coming with USB-C. The micro USB is the old Android devices would usually use that. USB-A to USB-C seems to be one of the top ones at the moment. USB-A to micro USB as well, which is interesting, it seems. All right, I can sense by the responses here that a lot of people here either have Apple devices or latest Samsung or Android devices, because they are the ones that are using USB-Cs to charge the boat. So I think looking at the responses here, I can say that USB-C seems to be the prominent option here. After that is Lightning connector. So as you can see here, that we have installed dual USB-A 3-pin sockets, but majority of the people over here are already switching over to USB-Cs, and therefore we have installed a solution at the moment. But Porterbrook is looking at the future here as well, and we are thinking of what we should do when it comes to future upgrades. Now, one of the options that we have for future upgrades is either we stick with a similar format, which is our 3-pin socket with our USB-A and USB-C, or we could trial with dual USB-A and USB-C sockets here, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, we need to bear this in mind, that USB-Cs are a lot more capable than just USB-As. They have the ability to deliver different voltages, so they can charge different high-powered voltage devices such as laptops and tablets. So you can go all the way up to 15 volts, 12 volts, depending on what type of system you have. But that option can only be provided in an enhanced faceplate. Hence, we can't really have a 3-pin socket if we want to deliver that enhanced USB-C option. So we've got two options that we're thinking about for the future. I think you guys can help me here today with what you think we should go for if we were to upgrade these in the future. So if you guys can go back to your mobile devices again and select the options, option A or option B, which one do you prefer to see on the trains in the near future? Option A is again with a USB-A, USB-C, and a 3-pin socket, or option B. Now, it might be that people won't carry 3-pin charging sockets anymore, and they'll just be carrying cables. Or people would say, no, we will still want to carry these 3-pin sockets, and we still rely on using them to charge their mobile devices. So that's very interesting that people still want the 3-pin sockets. Option A seems to be prominent again. I think it's pretty obvious now that option A is what people would like to have. I think people are more interested in making sure that they have all the options rather than the option to charge their mobile devices quickly. So it's interesting that people are still keen on carrying 3-pin sockets and would like to have all the options available when they are on the train. Great, thank you so much, brother. That was really good. That was really good to get people's feedback and understanding what people think should be the future. So after seat socket, so once we had done the seat socket installation, the second scope of work that we were looking at was the LED lighting. Now, for better ambience and energy savings, this work package was then added to Aurora A. What it does is it replaces all the fluorescent tubes with LED tubes. Now, LED tubes are way more efficient, and what we did was we did a auxiliary load analysis before and after the fitment of Aurora A, and we found that we were saving 33% of energy savings by just switching over from fluorescent tubes to LED tubes. Now, based on the current EC4T rates, that translates into roughly about 150,000 pounds worth of energy savings across the fleet once they've been switched over. So that's a huge amount of saving that you can get across a train once you have just by replacing fluorescent tubes with LED tubes. Great. So I think seat sockets, LED lights were the two customer-facing upgrades to make customer the better ambience and the ability to charge your mobile devices. With those two relatively easy wins, we are now sort of moving into the realm of slightly more complicated modifications. Now, when we did our analysis on the new builds, we found that all the new builds are being equipped with forward-facing CCTV and track debris cameras. Now, the forward-facing CCTV captures the view of the driver's view, whereas the track debris focuses on the third rail. And now, to record these footages from the cameras, a network video recorder was installed in each driving car. And the network video recorder uses IP-based cameras so that we could potentially future-proof our system by upgrading the saloon CCTV system as well. So we could the new saloon CCTV system could then be connected back to the same NVR, so we won't have to add additional recording devices on our train. And what we did was we connected the NVR to our Ethernet backbone, making sure that the footage could be remotely downloaded, which would allow the data analytics team to further analyze the images, for example, for looking at missing signals or vegetation on the line. And then that analysis then could then be shared with the network rail, helping them maintain the infrastructure. We're also thinking about installing thermal imaging cameras, which could then look for hotspots on the third rail, and that could then again be reported back to network rail, indicating where there might be issues with the power systems on the third rail. So what I've done is I've got a short video showing the forward-facing CCTV capture. This is a Celis depot where the unit has been modified. It's just coming out of the depot. I will sort of scroll down quickly to the end, and you can see that the unit's coming out. You can observe that there is the third rail on the bottom, the switches, the signals. So you can see that there's a lot that the data analytics team can visualize and analyze and then post-process it, and they can detect anomalies based on what the images are capturing. Now, these images are captured at 25 frames per second. The question I have today is, what resolution are these images captured at? So if I can request everyone to go back to their mobile devices and answer this question here, which is, at what resolution was this forward-facing CCTV images captured at? You can see options on your screen. You've got a few options there, from 480p to 4K. I'll give you a hint here. 4K is the highest possible specification that's out there, which is becoming a normal. There's 8K as well, but 4K is a very high resolution image. People who watch YouTube frequently would have noticed that on their options, where you can select what quality of image, or what resolution quality you want to view the video in. So I've got 15 responses so far. Very quickly, give it a few more minutes, see what people think that is the resolution of those images. Okay, I've got 22 responses. I think I'll give it a few more seconds if people want to think about it. 24 and 26. Okay, great. So the correct answer is 720p. Okay, so that's a very interesting result there. Some people have said 4K. 4K is an ultra high definition there. So this is definitely not 4K, but this is high definition 720p. I do agree that the resolution does not look high enough, and hence majority 38% of the people might have thought that it is 480p. But this is 720p, and at 25 frames per second, it gives us adequate resolution to post-process it and to look for different items on the track, such as vegetation and missing signals or anything of that sort. So, but I think I'm pleased to see that 42% got 720p, which is the right answer. 1080p is what we are looking at for our saloon CCTV cameras. We have to think about how much data we will be producing and where we will be storing it if we increase the resolution all the way up to 1080p. 4K cameras we are sort of a few years away from having 4K cameras on our trains. But great, thank you so much for responding to that. So that was the quickest answer was from Anna. Well done, Anna. But Steve, Joe, well done, guys, for responding back so quickly. So now we've spoken about the forward-facing CCTV system, but now we're moving on to the fourth work package, which was the passenger information system upgrade. Now, with working collaboratively with our train operating company, we learned very early on that the passenger information system had multiple reliability issues and required urgent attention. So by working with our fleet engineers, we developed a list of subsystems that could be overhauled, replaced, or entirely upgraded throughout the entire fleet. Now, subsystems such as cab audio control unit or saloon audio control unit were the ones on the top, and we thought we could upgrade them to the latest generations. The display screens, which you see on the top of the in the saloon, we could upgrade them from having the through hole LEDs to surface mounted LEDs. And what that would do is we would provide more reliability, but also enhance the resolution of these of the display that comes up on these PIS displays. So these were the different things that we were looking at. These were the majority of them was to make sure that the system works reliably. They were not really, a few aspects of this was customer facing, but what we also did was we connected our PIS system to the Ethernet backbone. The next thing that we looked at was the passenger information media. Now, what we did, we started to investigate what passengers would like to see when they board a train. What sort of information would they want to access straight away? So to do that, we installed two 21.5-inch media screens in each saloon. So as soon as people would board, they would be able to see them, and we would display targeted information feeds from Darwin, London to Rainbow Map, and some other sort of digital content, so that which would ease the process of getting on board and finding a seat. And what we also were looking at was how, because we were taking up space that was being used for advertisements. So as you can see on the screen here, that space is being used up for what was being used for advertising. So what we did was we also included a concept of stories where advertising companies could upload their stories based on time, location, and they could then be used to generate revenue for the train operating company. So this was the idea of helping passengers get on board. I will be speaking a bit more about them in the other scopes of works, but the main idea of these media displays was to make sure that passengers can quickly access information and they can see whatever they need as soon as they board the train. Okay, so here's another question then. Does your mobile support 5G communications? So we know, I'm sure everyone here in this room would have 4G communications. The question I have is, does it support 5G as well? 5G is becoming, it's being rolled out across UK now. In the major cities, you can definitely find it, but I think very soon it will be across the entire country. The question is, how many people actually have mobile devices that support 5G? Now, if you are an Apple user, iPhone 12 is the only one that supports 5G. Oh, sorry, the latest iPhone only supports 5G, but majority of Android devices released in the last year or so do support 5G. So I've got 20 responses so far, majority of them saying no. We've got 24 responses, excellent. I think I'll give a few more seconds to see where it goes. This is 75. Okay, so 3/4 of the people don't have a 5G mobile, a bit more than that. Right. But a quarter of the people here today do have a 5G mobile, and 5G is the next communication that we're going to be looking at. So 80%, okay, so 1/5 of the people have 5G mobile, 5G capable mobiles. Now, the railway industry has always been accused of being slow, especially when it comes to new technology, but not anymore. Now, most of our trains have 3G modems on them, and there is a risk that to support 5G communications, 3G will be switched off. So we needed to make sure that we removed our 3G modems and make sure that they replace them with 4G ones. Now, while doing so, we made sure that our trains were 5G ready. And what we did was that we upgraded our communication boards to open standard communication protocols such as PCIe Express. So what would that mean is once we need to replace a modem on the boards, it would be a simple swap on the job, on the depot. You don't have to send the kit back to the supplier for it to be upgraded. We replaced the antenna on the roof of the trains to be ready for, which is capable of 4G and 5G, making sure that when 5G is available to the train, it can access it. Now, when we scoped Aurora A, the 5G modules were not available in the market, but they are now. They are provided by Sierra Wireless, and they use PCI Express, which is something a lot of people who build their own computers would have heard that term. It's a standard protocol that could be implemented. So the idea is, if you're using a standard protocol, you can replace these very quickly on the depot. So these are out there. So if in case you are doing an upgrade which is related to the communications of the train, I would recommend making sure that your trains are 5G ready or 5G capable. So this is something that we took into consideration, that with 3G being switched off, how do we make sure we are 4G capable and 5G ready? And hopefully in the near future, once these modules are available to us, we will be replacing our 3G, 4G modems to 4G, 5G. Great. So moving on from the passenger information systems and the real-time passenger information media, the next scope of work that we looked at was the automatic passenger counting. So what we did was we fitted passenger counting sensors on the header panels of each door, making sure that as soon as people board or leave the trains, we can count them. Now, the idea was that as soon as the door closes or door opens, it would trigger the sensors, and they would count the number of people leaving or entering the train, and straight away send that information via the Ethernet backbone to the passenger information system. And the passenger information system would then process it and display it onto the real-time passenger information media screens that we have in each saloon. So as soon as somebody boards the train, they can see which cars are empty, encouraging them to move within the train or within the whole consist. Because at the moment, once people board the train, they're not really keen to move from one car to the other or even to the other unit. So this was the idea, to encourage people to say there's some vacant seats on the other end of the train and you should move. But the whole idea was to have an integrated system which would allow the passenger, which would count the passengers, display the information as soon as they board the train. One of the things that we were while working on this project was that was the ergonomics of how we get this to work and how we make sure that maintaining our fleet doesn't become more difficult than it is. At the moment, when you drop a header panel, it's a one-man job. You drop the header panel, everything is tucked away neatly. But by installing a APC sensor and running multiple different cables, that would become a two-man job. So to avoid that, what we did, we split our sensors into two smaller bars, and then they were able to be neatly fitted within the header panel, and the cables nicely tucked away, making sure it was still a one-man job. So a lot of consideration was paid to making sure that not only things were future-proof, but also easy to maintain, making sure that they don't increase the maintenance costs. So this was the idea with the passenger counting system. It was a relatively simple system, and it was also connected to the Ethernet backbone on the train. Moving on to the next scope of work that we worked on was the on-train data recorders. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these fleets were built over multiple decades, and one of the things that was different across the fleet was the on-train data recorders. Now, the older builds had some older technology which was not capable of remote downloads or could be connected to the Ethernet backbone, whereas the new OTDRs on the later builds did have the capability of remote downloads. Now, to have a consistent solution across the fleet, we installed Telok 3000 OTDRs across our older fleets, and making sure that they were capable of remote downloads, making sure that we could connect to them remotely and view data, and also upgraded our later builds to have the remote connection capability. So across the entire fleet, we would have our OTDRs remotely uploading information. But what we also took into consideration was ETCS, European Train Control System. So there's a judicial recording unit that is required on these OTDRs. So we upgraded that as well as part of this scope, making sure that when ETCS has to be rolled across this fleet, these OTDRs would be ready and wouldn't require any further upgrades. Now, one of the aspects that we wanted to, while installing this, we wanted to consider was how to minimize the number of recrimping and running new cables in. So the old OTDR already had cables and connectors ready, and recrimping them would be a difficult job. So what we did was we developed an adapter that could be fitted right onto the new OTDR which would have receptacles for the existing cables, and they could just directly be fitted in, making the job a quick 5-minute job of plugging the cables in. So a lot of consideration was paid, making sure that these systems were future-proof, modern, but also were easy to install and maintain. Finally, the 7th scope of work, the train data network upgrade. Now, this is the most important upgrade of Aurora A, because one of the critical elements of Aurora A was to bring all these subsystems together and online to provide remote condition monitoring, which would in turn help detailed data analytics. Now, during our previous projects at Porterbrook, we were implementing a blue and red Ethernet backbone strategy. Now, with blue network dedicated for the passenger Wi-Fi, the red network was dedicated for the train systems. The only problem with that was the red network was not connected to the internet. So for Aurora A, we developed a slightly different strategy, which was to replace the red network with the purple network. And what that would do is that would allow the train systems to be connected to it, but securely connected everything to the internet. So all our OTDR, network video recorders, media screen, PIS systems would be connected on the purple Ethernet backbone, and making sure that we were segregated from the passenger Wi-Fi system, which was on the blue network. And by using Cat7 cables, we were making sure that we were capable of going up to 10 gigabits per second. At the moment, our Ethernet backbones are at 1 gigabits per second. But by just upgrading the Ethernet switches, we have the potential of switching our systems from 1 gigabits to 10 gigabits per second, which will also be helpful when 5G gets rolled out. We will be able to fully utilize the potential of these mobile communications at which are in theory, what 5G would be able to reach 1 gigabits per second. Now, I think this is a bit of a brief overview of what systems we've got connected on the train. You can see there's multiple things happening, multiple systems connected to the train. And you can see here an image of the blue and the purple networks. Now they don't look purple and blue by color. They've been called that. You can see that the blue network is a blue switch is on the bottom with a very few cables to it, whereas the purple switch on the top with a lot of connections made to it. On the left hand side of the screen, you can see the Wi-Fi access point, which is used for passenger Wi-Fi. So here's a bit of an idea, a bit of a picture of which shows the installation of the Ethernet backbone. Now, a very quick summary of what's being connected to the train. So I'm sure a question on everyone's mind here would be cybersecurity and how are we managing it? Now, the first thing we did was we implemented a separate Ethernet backbone. So we got the blue backbone for passenger Wi-Fi and the purple backbone for the train system. So we were segregating everything on the physical layer. And even on the purple network, when you have different systems connected together, they were being connected over a virtual LAN. So even though they were using the same copper wire, they could not see each other on the same, they could not communicate with each other, they could not see each other. We also made sure that all unused ports were closed and all the data transfer from the train to the servers was done over virtual private networks, which were pre-configured. So there was no way of accessing the train from an unknown network. Now, even if after all these safety aspects, even if something did go wrong, the gateway provider would simply switch off the system services and the train could still carry on and would have no effect on its performance. And once the issue would be resolved, the communications could then be resumed and the systems would be able to upload all the backlog of information. So these were the 7 scopes of Aurora A. We spoke about the customer-facing ones and then the passenger upgrades. And the critical aspect of Aurora A was how we share that information with the wayside servers and how we can use that for post-processing. So a lot of information was then being transferred from the train to the different servers, the TOC servers or the Porterbrook data lakes. So one thing that we always need to ask ourselves is, what are clouds really made up of? Now we think about a cloud where we remotely upload information, but in reality they are servers. They are servers that are located somewhere in the world where they're storing and providing information 24/7. And we need to sometimes consider what really happens with these servers. Now, an average server would consume about 500 to 1,000 watts an hour. And if you take an average, that's about 850 watts per hour. Over a course of day, that's about 20.4 kilowatts hour of energy. That's like running more than 10 kettles. So that's a lot of energy that's required to run these data servers all day. So we need to think about the sustainability aspect here. We need to ensure that we don't end up building data servers all across the world just to keep this data flowing. So we need to consider a bit more when we start to produce a lot of data and start to send that across to wayside servers. Now these servers are running 24/7 and they consume a lot of power, but you might argue here today that trains really produce a few megabytes worth of data every day. But if you multiply that across hundreds of trains in the country, that turns out to be a lot of data. And we need to consider how we can consolidate that data, like process it onto the source and then only transfer the information that is required. So rather than sending all the raw data, we should send more useful information across. Now, all of the data centers, so at the moment, the data centers are estimated to use 200 terawatt hours of energy each year. That is more than some national energy consumption of some countries. So that's a lot of power that's being used every year by these data servers. Now, data servers are getting better and they're getting more efficient, but at the rate we are producing this data, is increasing exponentially. As of 27, as you can see on the screen, in the world we had 1.1 zettabyte worth of data. So I'm hoping we've got a lot of young engineers listening to me today. I would strongly recommend that before we install new systems on the train which are producing loads of data, we need to consider how we can make it more efficient and make sure that we are processing and sending data that is more useful and does not require a lot of post-processing. So here's another question time then. So if everyone's ready, we've got 31 people who are on the quiz now. The question is, how much data is there in the world? So as I said, in 2017, there was 1.1 zettabyte worth of data. How much, as of January 2021, how much data have we already produced? You can see some few options on your screen. It's all the way from 2 zettabytes to 80 zettabytes. I've got 2 responses so far. People are thinking. Zettabyte is 1 into 10 raised to the power of 21 bytes. That's a lot of data, but we are producing a lot of data. Think about Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all these medias, people taking images in 4K, making videos in 4K, uploading them onto YouTube. So you've got so much data that's being produced now, so many different places, and all of this data is ending up in somewhere in the world on servers which are running 24/7. So where do we think, how much data do we think we have produced as of January 2021? I've got 20 responses so far. 21. I'll give a few more minutes because let people think about this. So as of 2017, 1.1 zettabyte. Do we think we'll go into the other? Do we think we'll be touching yottabyte? But no, that's not the option. So definitely not there. I think we've got 21 responses. I will move on now, which is so I've got okay. So people have gone with the maximum option, which is 80 zettabytes, 44. A few people have gone with 15 and 8. The correct answer is 44. So not as much as you think there is, but 44 is the correct answer. We have produced 44 zettabytes as of January 2021. But next, the quickest answer was from Steph. Well done, Steph. What I would say is, how much data will there be by 2025? So from almost 4 years from now, where do you think we will be? So if you can look up your options on the screen, which option do you think? How many bytes of data do you think the world would have produced by 2025? I've got 3 responses so far. This is the last question of the quiz. So let's see who gets all 4 right today and who makes it to the top of the leaderboard. 9 responses, very good. People are quite, this time we're getting quick responses. People are thinking about it. Just imagine there'll be more devices as we go. There'll be more people signing up to different social media services, YouTube, Snapchat, all these data. We'll be producing data in much more high resolution as well. And for example, 4K resolutions will be becoming a much more normal thing to have. Well, they are at the moment. The newer TVs are in 4K. Got 20 responses, a few more seconds. Do we have any more responses? Okay, great. So we've got, oh right, okay, so we've got quite a few answers. Most of the majority of the people think it's 175. The correct answer is 175. That is, so we can if you think about it, take a step back and think about it. In 2017 we only had 1 zettabyte, and by 2025 we will have produced 175. You can see the curve going up very, very quickly. So we need to consider, even though it's the smaller bits, the smaller chunks of data that we'll be producing on our trains, but we have a lot of trains running in the country. We need to consider a bit more of the sustainability aspect of it, making sure we don't burn too much energy running these servers. Great. So we got oh, so the leader at the moment is Antonio with, he's got 3 right, and this is the leaderboard for today. Well done, Antonio. You're first. These were the 4 questions that I asked today in this part of the quiz. Thank you so much for responding to that. That was really, really useful. I was able to interact with you. I really enjoyed that. So where are we now? What's happening on Aurora A? Well, the 7 areas of scope which we are doing as part of Aurora A, we are currently modifying our units at Sellers Depot, where we've completed 6 units and we are currently modifying 7th unit. The project received a very good recognition on BBC. I was very pleased to see that article. But what really good for me was that I presented this project at the Derby Railway Engineering Society in 2020, and I won that lecture. And I was also requested to deliver this presentation to the All-Party Parliamentary Rail Group in December 2020, where I spoke about Aurora A. It was a meeting on Zoom. Unfortunately, I could not meet the Lords in person, but it was very interesting how they wanted to make sure that we could bring passengers back onto the rail. But based on your responses, what you've given me today, what you have said in the initial word collage, it was interesting to see what people think about the UK Railway and what they would like to see in the future. So what's next? Have we called it a day here? It's a day. Have we packed up our bags and gone home? Well, when it comes to innovation, look no further than Porterbrook. And that's why we've launched a new initiative called Aurora B. Aurora B is about one-off trials, and we're trialing different technologies on our Electrostar fleet. For example, bioreactor toilets, bearing monitoring, wireless chargers for our tables. So we spoke about 3-pin sockets, we spoke about USB cables, but who really wants to carry a cable when you can really charge your mobile devices wirelessly? Majority of the mobile devices in the industry used by passengers today are wireless. So we are trialing something like that to see if we can have wireless chargers. We're also looking at HVAC systems, how we can make them more efficient by monitoring the CO2 levels. So these are different aspects, different projects we are trialing, but we are also looking at inclusivity to make sure that we can help people who have visible or hidden disabilities, making sure they can access our trains. Different areas we're looking at are wheelchair access, reducing the gap, grab handles, and stuff like that, different bits and bobs like that, making sure our trains are more inclusive. So last question of the day, we'll make it very quick, which is, what upgrades or modifications would you like to see on the trains? So we spoke about Aurora. You've told me what you've thought about the railway industry at the beginning. What do you think would you like to see on these trains going forward? And what do you think as a train leasing company we should consider? So give it a few minutes, think about in a word or two, what would you like to see on these trains? ETCS fitment, absolutely. Yes, we want to get rid of all these signals. Empty seat signs visible. Yes, I think that's a very good idea. Radio transmission. I believe radio transmission, you mean remote condition, more data on what's happening on the trains remotely. We are, or you might be talking about the GSMR here. Better air conditioning, yes, absolutely. Summers are getting really hot in this country. Live connection, yes. We want to see where the trains are. We want to provide you more data, and that's what Aurora is about, making sure we can offload as much data as we can from these trains and provide that much more easily to the passengers. There was one more, MDC signs, heated seats. That's an interesting one. That might consume a lot of power on the trains, but that is an interesting option that we should think about. More passenger information, yes, absolutely. More passenger information, that's what the passenger information media screens are for. We just had one more. More integrated transportation, yes, cycling. We need to make sure that people can not only they have spots for to store their cycles, but also make sure that there is space. So before a train comes up, they know there is sufficient space for them to board. Transport for London, packs info like 70s. Okay, I'll definitely look into that. They have heated seats, more passenger information, we just had a battery for non-electrified sections. Ooh, that is also an interesting one. Keep an eye out for Porterbrook news. You will see some information on that. Better communications, yes. So we are upgrading our 3G, 4G network modems to 5G so that you can have better Wi-Fi. In terms of coverage, I don't think we can do much about that. We just had one more. Better food connectivity in cuttings and tunnels. Yes, we can have Wi-Fi access points installed within these tunnels as well. I think I just saw one more pop up. Better connection, more integrated, heated seats, comfortable seats. Yes, the comfortable seats is a tricky one because of the fire safety standards. These seats are getting more and more problematic. Okay, so less digitization and more getting the basics right. Okay, several cables are proprietary standards and not recognized by IEEE. That is interesting, because Cat7 cables are needed for 10 gigabits per second. So I will definitely look into that. That's an interesting point there. Less digitization as well. Again, very interesting. Very different from the whole Porterbrook scope. More leg room, yes, we can look into that, but unfortunately that would require removing the seats. We just had one more pop-up on the screen. Comfortable seats, empty seat signs. Better connectivity. Okay. Electric bike charging unit. That is a fantastic idea. I think electric bicycle charging unit. That is a really good idea. We would definitely look into that because we've installed seat sockets. I don't see why not we can install something else. Smart glass separating driver's cab. Smart light. Okay, because this is also an interesting one. Yeah. Smart glass separating driver's cab. That's an interesting one. It might be very difficult on the Electrostars, but we should consider this for our other fleet. So I'm just curious of time. I think I've got some really nice options there. Leaf clearing lasers. Yes, leaf clearing lasers. That would be a good idea. But I think we'll have to check the feasibility of that. It does sound like a really good idea. Okay, thank you. No, that's really good. We've got really nice responses there from everyone. I think I'm going to move on now. Just looking at the time. So, in case I've managed to send you to sleep, here's a very quick update on what we did as part of Aurora. We looked at what the requirements were, what the DFT was after, what we should do. We came up with 7 scopes of work for Aurora, and here they are listed on the screen. I'm not going to read them out again, but one thing I would definitely say is we need to be careful about our data generation, how much data we are producing. Where are we now? We are modifying the 7th unit. We are the whole program is expected to end by December 2025. Have we called it a day there? Are we stopping there? Well, not really. We have got Aurora B, a new initiative to further improve our Electrostars. So thank you so much for listening. That was really good. I got a lot of nice responses from everyone. Really enjoyed that. I will hand this over to my colleague Chris now, and I'll see if there's any questions from people.
Thanks, Kamil. Very interesting as always. It's good to see the great work that you're doing in Porterbrook. Everyone, please feel free, if there's any more questions, stick them in the chat box. I know I've got a few already. I'll just run through them now very quickly. So we've got one question, and this is around the 3 pins, Kamil. So Surely by choosing the 3-pin that we are backwards proofing as well as future proofing.
We are, yes. This is the thing. We are 3-pin sockets. Of course, you can draw 13 amps worth of power, but not on the trains. The trains are limited to 2 amps. But the idea is you can plug in your any device that you carry would be able to plug in. But the problem with 3-pin sockets is that we need to consider the amount of power the train can actually deliver for these 3-pin sockets, and that's why we are thinking how we can encourage people to use these 5-volt USB or USB-Cs. But I think from the survey that we did today, it was pretty apparent that the passengers would still like to have the ability to plug into the 3-pin socket, which was interesting because I thought majority of the people would have said USB-Cs and USB-A, so I was surprised there.
Okay, thank you. How have you allowed for passengers with older mobiles and technology?
Sorry, say that again, Chris.
How have you allowed for passengers with older mobile phones and older technology?
Okay, so when we say older technology and older mobile phones, I believe mobiles that do not connect to the Wi-Fi and don't have the ability to download information. Is that what?
I assume that's where the reason behind that question is, yeah.
Yes, so we're not entirely relying on people to carry smart devices, and that's the reason we've installed passenger information media screens, which sort of flick through different pieces of information that people would like to see. Now, based on our customer focus groups that we did, we would determine what exactly people would like to see when they board the train. Okay. So we have provided options, but yes, if you are carrying a smartphone, you do have an advantage.
Another question is how, if at all, is the project being integrated with ETCS fitment to Porterbrook's Electrostar fleets?
That's a very good question. So the ETCS systems, there are currently different solutions out there at the moment based on the supplier you selected. But the fundamental things, for example, the judicial recording unit that's required on the OTDRs, we've got that and made sure that we've got that installed on our fleet. We've also made sure that there's spare capacity on the Ethernet backbone in case the ETCS wants to use that. But the majority of the upgrades on Aurora A were more focused on improving the reliability and the passenger experience. So just those two options were there, just those two upgrades. Other than that, we've not really done a lot of work on with regards to ETCS.
Okay. So some of the design decisions that you've made, what sort of research have you done, market research, to come to the conclusion on some of those?
I think the majority of the research came from the Transport Focus Group and the London Travel Watch. These were done with the passengers who usually use the Southern Rail, which is the 37 based on 377s, and we wanted to understand what the passengers wanted to do. And that was a key indicator. The seat sockets was the main one that people wanted, and people wanted to make sure that they had access to information as soon as possible and in-time information rather than real-time information. But at the same time, a lot of work was also done on making sure these trains are upgraded so that they can compete with the newer trains. So they have these upgrades ensuring that at the end of the day, when Porterbrook's wants to release them for the new franchise, they stand a chance and they're more competitive.
Okay. One last question for me is the project's called Aurora A. Where does that name come from?
That's an excellent choice. Anna, who's also with us today, she and I came up with this name. The idea was that Aurora is the goddess of dawn in Greek mythology, and this is the dawn of our Electrostars. This is the new sunrise of our Electrostars, and that's why we came with Aurora. That this is the new rise of our Electrostars. Again, it does not sound very fancy, but when we thought about it, it sounded very cool.
Very good. Thanks, Kamil.
Thank you very much.
We're just about out of time. You may have seen on the screen, we've got a graphic. So we're currently fundraising for the Albert Kennedy Trust, AKT. So AKT is a charity supporting LGBTQ+ young people aged 16 to 25 in the UK who are facing or experiencing homelessness or living in a hostile environment. They support young people into safe homes and employment, education or training in a welcoming and open environment that celebrates LGBTQ+ identities. So please feel free to follow the link on the screen and donate what you can, or alternatively you can scan the QR code, which will take you to Masquet, who we partnered with to have a new design for the Pride YRP face coverings. So you can purchase one of those. All proceeds will go to the charity. So please donate what you can. Once again, thanks, Kamil. Very, very interesting. Hopefully we'll get you back in here in the near future. Tell us all about Aurora B and everything else that you're doing. But until then, thanks very much, and thanks everyone for attending. And we'll speak again soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.